This video is on the Q125 signal processor. A quick overview of that. It can take a signal and turn it up. You can also turn it down into the negative. You can shift a signal and you can invert a signal. It also has the potential to just spit out control voltage. You may be new to 5U, but you've probably programmed other synthesizers. And if you have, flicking a switch that says negative to an envelope or adjusting the key tracking of the filter, those are all processing voltages. So you've already done it. It's just, instead of it being under the hood, you have access to the controls now. And because of that, mastering a Q125 will unlock so much potential in the system you already have. I've made a few patches to illustrate the potential of the Q125. I've also thrown in some patch ideas and some really tried and true techniques for programming an Oberheim Xpander that you can port over to your 5U system. Let's use the signal processor's offset to convert a bipolar waveform into a unipolar waveform. A saw wave is unipolar. The bottom stays the same, the top always goes up. An example of a bipolar waveform is a pulse wave. And as you can hear, the interval is always kind of going farther apart. To change that, we're going to convert this bipolar wave into a unipolar wave. Plug the waveform in and out of the voltage processor. By turning the offset all the way up to +5, we've changed the bipolar signal into a unipolar signal. Now you can hear that the bottom is consistent and the top of the waveform moves up or down. This is just going to help when you're trying to find intervals. It's much easier. Taking this patch one step further, just because we're set up, plug the output of an envelope generator with a long decay into your exponential frequency. Turn that all the way up, speed up your LFO, and you should have a 70s filter sweep. Throw that into audio range, and now you should have a laser blast from maybe early 80s sci-fi movie. In this next example, we're going to effectively split this LFO into two. And we're going to do that by using the inverter in the signal processor. We're going to take this sound and make it as thick as possible. So we're going to start out by plugging in an LFO into the linear frequency of the oscillator. And that's okay. Let's plug it into the pulse width. Better. So what if we did both? We're going to have sine wave into the multiple, out of a multiple, into the linear frequency, out of that same multiple, into the pulse width. Nice, much thicker. But can we make it better? And the answer is yes, using the signal processor. We're going to come out of the multiple and go to the input of the signal processor. Out of the signal processor into the pulse width. But we're going to invert the signal. Now I'm going to switch off the inversion so you can hear the difference. This is on, off. It's not a night and day change, but it's just a patch to illustrate that with the signal processor and inversion, we can create a scenario where the LFO modulating the frequency is rising at the same time as it's falling, modulating the pulse width modulation. Okay, this should make it a little clearer. Instead of having the LFO modulate the linear frequency of one oscillator and the pulse width of that same oscillator, I set up another oscillator so we can hear it. So we'll take the pulse width, plug it into the linear frequency of oscillator number 1 or 2, however you look at it, and we'll play a note and turn up the frequency mod. This is not inverted. This is basically one LFO going to 2 oscillators. When I invert it, you clearly hear that one is rising while the other is falling at the same time. And this is a big trick people use with expanders. We're going to take that same LFO, go into each oscillator's pulse width mod, and detune one a bit. And that's kind of how you can get a really thick sort of string sound for an expander or for your 5U system. I'm using both signal processors to achieve this patch. To start, it's a ring mod. My preference in coming up with a tone when I'm using a ring mod patch is a oscillator with a frequency knob where I can go from the bottom to the top. It's just easier for me to find that frequency, like this core synth oscillator. I can make this Synthesizers.com oscillator behave the exact same way by plugging the output of a signal processor into the 1 volt per octave. Now my offset does the same thing. So with this, I have the ability to work the way I'm used to working just by incorporating a signal processor. I really like those deep tones in the ring mod. The next part of the patch we're going to work on is the filter frequency and its modulation by this envelope generator. We're going to change it by inverting it. There is no inversion on the unit itself, so we're going to go through the bottom. We're going to invert it. Nothing plays. Turn up the filter. And to throw out one more kind of standard expander modulation, we're going to throw an LFO into the filter frequency and we're going to modulate it by an envelope. Doing that with a long decay and a long release will result in this sound. These are just 2 examples of how you can change a module to make it work the way you like to work, and to also augment a module that may not have a feature you need for the particular patch you're making. It'd be my suggestion that one of the first modules you purchase for a Box 11 system would be a signal processor. It does open up so many more creative possibilities with the system you already have.